Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Double Play. We're back after our little week and a half hiatus here. Just a busy week, but we're back. Baseball did not wait up for us, so we've got a lot to talk about. Jack, how are you doing? How was your week off?
I'm doing very well. Of course, we took the week off to try and get back on schedule, Monday episodes, and then also doing some stuff maybe later in the week. But I used the week off to go back home, flew back to San Jose, and then also went to Stanford and USC in Palo Alto. So it was good to be back to see family, but then also got to see USC. So that was kind of a win-win. The NFL is back, so is fantasy football. It was a crazy week, a lot of stuff going on, but still a fun weekend. Glad I got to go home.
Yeah, but speaking of fantasy football, I went 2-0 this week, even with Cam Akers putting up a whopping 0 in both my leagues.
I told you he would. I told you he would.
And I still got the win in both, so I'm not too concerned about it. So, but obviously, with fantasy, we've got fantasy baseball going on. We talked about our matchups before, but right now we're matching up in the playoffs, so it's big so far. I think you're up just barely by double digits after week 1's 2-week matchup, but it is going to be a good finish, and we're playing each other big stakes.
Yeah, so if you have been following along, I think I went 3-0 versus Ryan in the regular season. I ended up getting the 1 seed. He choked his way out of the 3 seed in the last week of the season, so he's the 4 seed's got to play me. In the playoffs, though, it's 2-week matchups after week 1. I mean, we both had just crazy weeks. 404 to 393 as of Monday at 2:22 was when we're recording this. That's Pacific time. But, the next week is still starting, so you've got a whole nother week to try and catch up. You're only down 11. We both had some great performances. Mike Trout, Wander Franco have come back to save me in the playoffs. They've been on the IR for just so long. Trout homered in 6 straight games this week. He's just been so clutch. Brandon Woodruff, Dylan Cease just balling on the mound, and then Michael Harris, O'Neal Cruz pushing me over the edge. I'm feeling good about it. I'm feeling good about where my team stands, but if you were down, you lost all 3 matchups in the regular season, but you could really push me, and if you take me out, I'll be so devastated because of last year. That exact same thing happened.
Yeah, and failed to mention, the only reason I'm losing right now is because Aaron Nola, who was, I think he pitched, 2 innings? He was pitching a good 2 innings. Then the game got rain delayed, so he didn't come back in the game on Sunday. So if he goes up and puts a good start, I might be winning. But Freddie won Player of the Week, so he carried me this past week. I'm confident for week 2. I'm not going to say anything before it happens, so check in. Make sure you come back to next episode to see the results of that.
That one's going to be crazy. Another big piece of news that I guess we kind of failed to mention after series locks a couple weeks ago. I've got a pending punishment that you've got to do something about, unless you want to just forget about it. And
no, I don't want to do that.
I've got a punishment from not this past week of series locks, but the week before that. The Brewers choked. I think it was the Braves choked for me. This was not a great week for me, so I've got a punishment whenever Ryan wants to give it to me. If he wants to forget, good with me. By all means, don't give me one. But eventually, I'm going to have to be punished for series locks. It'll even us up, I think, at three punishments apiece? 3 punishments apiece.
I believe so, yeah. It's coming for you. Probably next episode. I'll have that set in stone, and we'll have some entertainment. So another reason to come back next week. But let's get into some baseball here. Biggest thing we saw kind of news around baseball is we got some big rule changes coming next year in 2023. We've got the pitch clock, the bigger bases, and the shift restriction. Coming with the pitch clock, we'll start off with that. 15 seconds, or in between pitches, the clock is 15 seconds with empty bases, and then 20 seconds with runners on. The batters get 1 timeout per at-bat if they feel like it's going too fast. The pitchers can only step off twice per AB, and if they pick off 3 times in a row and are unsuccessful, this one's my favorite rule, pick off 3 times in a row unsuccessfully, it acts as a balk, and the runner gets to advance a base. So that one I thought was interesting. It has been very successful in the minor leagues. I think it speeds up the game on average by 28 minutes. So hopefully some people who complain about baseball being too long and too boring, hopefully that crowd is roped in with that, and then just passionate baseball fans. It'll speed it up, give you a little bit more action, and then get you out of there in about 2.5 hours.
I'm excited about the pitch clock. I did a little segment, I think it's a couple months ago now, where I was like fixing baseball in 3 steps, and implementing a pitch clock was one of the things that I said, I just think that's best for the game of baseball. And I think MLB agrees. They've had it throughout the minor leagues. It's been super successful. 15 seconds with empty bases, 20 seconds with runners on seems about kind of like where I was at when we recorded that. For certain pitchers, this won't be a problem. I mean, the Alex Woods of the world who just work feverishly fast, won't be a problem. Some pitchers, though, Kenley Jansen, Camilo Doval, some of the slower pitchers in the league, they're going to have to figure out. Like Luis Garcia cannot keep up his same windup as he has been in the past couple of years. That's going to be something to have to keep an eye on next year. Maybe we'll do an episode or a little video before next year, like pitchers that will struggle with the pitch clock. But I'm all for that part of the pitch clock. The part where you're only allowed to step off a certain amount of times off the rubber, I'm in between on, because it's not only like if you pick off 3 times, but if you pick off once and then you step off because maybe pitch comm isn't working or you want to just go through the signs again, then you can't pick off a 3rd time. So if you pick off a 3rd time, you have to get them. If not, they get the base. Or if you have to step off again for the signs, like it's going to be a really weird mesh of things. You could have a pitcher who has already stepped off twice, maybe once to pick off, once to step off. The batter's already called time, and you're not able to get a sign, and neither guy can step off or step out of the box, and you're going to have that forever. I mean, once a batter calls time once, the pitcher's going to be able to ice them like crazy, ice the runners. So it's going to be an interesting thing. I'm not sure it needed to be implemented in the rules, but I also think it makes sense if they want to speed up the game. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, the pitch clock is a very fan-friendly rule, and one that's more of a player-friendly rule is the bigger bases. Just to help player safety. We've seen too many times a player's sprinting down the line and gets a kind of a weird plant on the base and gets hurt. We've seen it Bryce Harper before. I can't remember any, but we've seen it before. And these bigger bases just help with that. Help with stepping on pitchers' feet as they go and cover. Just player safety in general. That one's good for it. And then we get into the shift restriction, which was very big. There has been very controversial opinions in baseball about this. So what the rule is 2 infielders on either side of the base when the pitch is released. So you gotta, this won't stop all shifts, but it'll stop the loading guys on the right side for left-handed batters. And then also all 4 infielders have to have both feet on the infield when the pitcher is on the rubber. So, that means you can't have guys in shallow right either. Jack, what are your thoughts on this? I have some thoughts as well, but Jack, you want to start us off here?
I remember, I think it was one of our first episodes. I was really upset at the idea of banning the shift. This is more of a limitation, which is what I said. If they're going to go anywhere with the shift, because I've always been saying I like the shift. I think it's part of baseball. I think it's just part of the competitive edge that teams are trying to get. With guys able to hit balls 500 feet now, it also makes sense that the defense can try and take some hits away. So I wasn't all for a full ban. I think this is a decent job. For me, I think I don't have a problem with on each side of second base. Like, I think that anyone should be able to be wherever they want, as long as maybe the infielders are on the infield. So I think they went about 50-50 for my liking personally. I think if they had just said all 4 infielders have to be both feet on the infield, doesn't matter where you line up based on second base, that I think would be perfect for me, because it allows a little bit for teams to play their defense against certain hitters who just don't go the other way, or maybe don't even pull the ball. Like, there's some of those guys. But I do think that they did a good job by saying you can't be in the outfield. So for me, they went 50-50, but I don't know. I guess it makes sense. I'm glad they didn't fully ban it. So I'm not going to complain. They could have done a little bit better in my opinion, but I think it still makes sense.
I actually really like the job that they did, because I don't know if you pay attention to defense alignments at all. I do that a lot, and a lot of the times that the shift is 2 guys on either side. They'll have the third baseman still at third base, sometimes a little bit over, and then the shortstop will basically be playing behind second base, and then the second baseman just kind of on the right side, depending on where the numbers are, a little closer to first or closer up the middle. But a lot of times the shortstop will be on that side of the base anyway, just up the middle. So it limits the overshifts that everyone knows about, like the third baseman in shallow right, Manny Machado making plays in the right field corner. That's no more. But I think there'll still be shift. They'll still be playing the analytics. And then, like you said, the players in the infield as well. What I think we could end up seeing, I don't know if it'll be often, but I really want to see it at least once, is a team pulls the left fielder to come and kind of play where the third baseman has played before, kind of in that shallow right. And kind of it's essentially turn it, if you go down the left field line as a lefty, you essentially have an inside the park home run. So it'd be interesting if teams try that. Or maybe you put the third baseman, move him to left field for a play, and put him in that shallow right, and put the left fielder at third. So then you're not risking a left fielder having to make a play off a 105 mile an hour bat. So there's just a lot of ways that they can go with this, and I'm very interested. I want to see that at least once, because it would just be crazy to see. I just picture the alignment. I mean, nobody in left field, and then the left fielder at third base, the third baseman in right field. It opens the doors for a lot of ways to get around it as well. So interesting to see how teams innovate with this and see if they change their approach at all.
Yeah, there's a couple things that I think it makes certain positions matter a lot more now than they did in the past. Like being an actual third baseman now means you're playing at third base. Sometimes you're not playing in right field or second base. Second baseman, I think, become a lot more valuable. Like defensive second basemen become a lot more valuable because they have to be in that one spot that if you're not able to shift against a lefty, a lot of their hits are going to go right to the second baseman. So I think that helps out the second base position. There's a couple things, though, that give me questions. Like, how are they going to monitor this? Like, is this a reviewable thing? Like, what if someone accidentally lines up with their heel on the outfield grass on a ground ball out? Can a manager challenge it, review it, and say they weren't lined up in the right position? Or like, is there going to be a line going straight back from second base and chalk, like, to figure out whether someone is actually lined up on the second base side they're supposed to be on? That's going to be interesting too. And then also going back to the bigger bases, I wonder how many close plays that went in favor of the defense this is going to take away. Like, say someone is sliding headfirst into third base, they're now got an extra 3 inches of base to try and, or I guess it's not exactly like perfectly, because I think it's 18 probably diagonally, but like, is there going to be a play now where it was this close and now this is erased because the base is like a little bit bigger? Like, that's something that's just interesting to me. Again, I don't think these rules are going to have a super big impact outside of the shift, but I mean, I just think it's just interesting things that pique my interest that I think we'll see next year that just raised me a couple questions.
I think with the shift, it's going to be a lot about the umpires. I don't think there'll be challengeable plays. I mean, this going back to our discussion with Dan and Mark, the baseball writers earlier, which you can go check that out. They kind of talked about how in the past, like before replay review, a guy can trap a ball in the outfield and play it off as a catch, and as long as the umpire didn't see it, kind of guys were okay with that. I think it's going to be a similar situation in terms of heel on the outfield, or maybe you're inching back kind of just a little bit as the pitch is coming. Just give yourself an extra split second of reaction. I don't think that's going to be something that managers kind of fuss over, because I think in the same situation, in the bottom of the inning, I think their guys are going to go and do the same. So I think it's going to be just kind of on the umpires to enforce, and I don't foresee it being too much of a problem in terms of the managers challenging. Maybe you'll have something in the bottom of the ninth of a game that maybe could have gotten through for a walk-off. Maybe then you'll see it. But I think for like a ground out in the fourth inning, I think managers will just be like, all right, we're going to go do it in the fifth inning. So I don't think that will be too big of a problem for me.
So there's one other thing that just randomly came to my mind. It says 2 infielders on each side of the second base when the pitch is released. Do you think that the teams are going to put on a play where the pitch is released and the second baseman sprints out to right field? Like, are they going to have like a motion almost in football where, like, right as the pitch is released, you put the guy on the move?
I hope it happens, but I hope it happens at least once. But I don't think that'll be a common thing, just because, I mean, it's already hard enough to react when you're standing still paying attention to the ball when 110 is coming at you. Imagine trying to read whether 110 is at you, behind you, or if you have to keep going while you're in a dead sprint coming off the bat. So I think like I said, that's another thing I hope we see at least once, just for the videos about it. But I don't think that'll be happening on a regular basis.
I don't think that they're going to send someone in a full sprint, but I wouldn't be surprised if a second baseman takes like 3 or 4 back pedal steps when a lefty's up when the pitch is released. Especially if they know what pitch is coming. Like, if they know a curveball is coming and they've got a little bit more time to get back, more likely it gets pulled. Like, I think that's something we could see. There's one notable omission, though, from the rule changes coming, and I know this is going to... We're differing on this opinion, but robot umpires, not included in a plan for 2023. Are you surprised by this? Are you happy about it? I know you're not, but I'm going to ask you anyway. what do you think about robot umpires not being listed?
I'm not surprised. I mean, and frankly, I wasn't expecting it in this coming season. I still think they're probably another season out from. There's still some kinks that, whether they want to go full robo or if they want to do the pitch challenging like we've seen recently. So I wasn't expecting it this coming season. I still hope down the line that we have some sort of robo umps. I think the pitch challenging will be a good compromise to where you get a certain amount of challenges per game and quick and easy. They kind of just point to their ear. Someone in the ear says, "Yep, you got that one wrong," and so you go, "Okay, that was a strike, not a ball." Or I think that's a good compromise between the people who want the human element in the game, but and then also the people who want it to be a little more perfect. If we have the technology, why not use it? So I think the pitch challenging will be a good solution once they figure out all the kinks, maybe for 2024 or beyond. But I was not surprised to see it. And I do want there to be robo umps in the game at some point, but I wasn't surprised that they left it out this season.
Yeah, I think I like the pitch challenging idea because I've been vocal about the fact that umpires make bad calls, but for the majority of umpires and for the majority of games, the calls are correct. So I think if you're able to challenge the couple that aren't correct, I think that's a good compromise. I think if they pair that with, well, like I've been saying all along, actually doing something about the grades that umpires have, like if an umpire is not good, like they're just not allowed to be behind home plate, or they're not allowed to be a major league umpire anymore, or there's a certain hierarchy of who gets to do what games, I think something like that paired with being able to challenge calls would be a good move. But let's get into our power rankings. We ranked teams 1 through 30. We're going to put those up on our Instagram, on our Twitter, the full rankings. But in this podcast episode, we wanted to cover just a couple of teams that rose, teams that fell, and a couple teams that flipped-flopped locations. And the big one is the Braves and the Mets. They swapped places because the Braves this week, for the first time, took the lead in the NL East. They don't have it anymore, but they've been playing better than the Mets recently. We ended up moving the Braves above the Mets. I believe the Braves are in third, the Mets are in fourth. There, yeah, they got the little pennants in the background. The Braves are 87-53 to the Mets 89-52, but the Braves are 8-2 in their last 10, and the Mets are 6-4 in their last 10. And the Braves have just clawed a lot closer. Maybe talk about what led us to making that decision.
I think it's just the Braves have been looking good recently. The Mets have just kind of they lost. I think they a series to the Nationals right after they played the Dodgers. So Mets have been losing a couple games that they should win, and then the Braves are, like you said, they're 8-2 in their last 10. They lost 2 straight, but before that they had won 8 straight and took over the division. So the Braves, they've been playing really well recently, and that kind of led to them. I think they're the 3rd team in our power rankings. You can go ahead and go to our Instagram, go to our Twitter to fact check us and see where your team's at. But I believe the Mets are right behind them at 4. But I mean, you can really swap them either way. I just think the Braves have been playing a little bit better as of late.
Yeah, no, I don't think that. I know I don't disagree. I don't think many fans would disagree that the Braves have been the better team as of now. And again, power rankings aren't saying who is the better team. It's a mixture of who's the better team and who's been playing better recently, almost like a stock exchange, like we've kind of mentioned a couple of different times, of teams. And I think that the Braves deserve to be higher than the Mets based on the way that they've been playing. But that doesn't answer the question that I want to pose to you right now. Who do you think is the bigger threat to beat the Dodgers long-term and possibly even go to the World Series between these two teams? Because they've gone back and forth. We have our differing opinions about who might win the division or who is the better team right now. But who do you think is the bigger threat coming out of the East?
I think it is the Braves. You've got that postseason caliber or the postseason experience on the roster. They have Acuna now, who he's a little banged up, hasn't been playing as well, but I mean he still provides that spark for the crowd. If he hits a big 6-inning bomb in a game that could change the tide of the entire series just to get the crowd into it. And I mean, lineup, I'd take the Braves. Pitching staff, you probably go with the Mets, but I mean, it's close. The Braves have no joke of a pitching staff either. And combined with that experience and then just the way they've been playing right now, they're on their way to peaking at the right time. You don't want to slow down too much here after losing 2 straight, but they're on their way to peaking at the right time. And we saw the Braves, who were kind of, I would consider them significant, not a worse team than the Dodgers last year, and they kind of made the Dodgers look like the way worse team, winning that series pretty easily in 6. So I think the Braves are a very big threat to the Dodgers right now.
Yeah, I think I would give the same answer. It's kind of like what we talked about last week of like the biggest, or ranking our teams that we think are most likely to win the World Series. For me, it's just the Braves. I think that and I think you took not offense, but you disagreed with me a little bit when I said that the Mets don't have as much like top-heavy star power that the Braves do, which I'm not saying the Mets don't have star power. I just think compared to the teams I had above them, which were the Braves, the Astros, and the Dodgers, I think that the Mets are slightly underneath that, especially when it comes to the lineup. I mean, they've got Scherzer and DeGrom, which can go out and win you any 1-2 game in a series. But after that, and then in the lineup, I just think that the Braves have a little bit more star power. They have a little bit more experience in the playoffs. I mean, even a lot more experience in the playoffs in the World Series. And I just think that the Braves are probably the bigger threat to the Dodgers.
So then, are you also going to take the Braves to win the division?
I don't know. That's the thing. Because, I mean, 89 and 52. The Mets have they're, I think, what is that, 1.5 or 2 games up to the Braves, 87 and 53. The season is almost over. The Mets have led the entire way. I really don't know. I mean, because I think that the Braves, they have the highest potential, but the Mets have been very consistent. They scrap out games, and I think it's going to be kind of like Giants-Dodgers last year, where the Dodgers were clearly a better team. They had better players, but the Giants led consistently for a long way. And I just feel like when you lead the entire way throughout the year, it just feels like, to the team, it feels like your division. Like, it feels like you deserve to win the division, and the good teams like actually make do on that, and they do win the division. So I think that the Mets will still win the East. If you were to ask me right now, I'm going to stick with that. Also, I've been saying it all season, even from the preseason. I want to stay true to my prediction, and I hope I was right preseason. I still, though, will also stick with what I said, that the Braves will be the better team in the postseason.
And that's another thing. We talk about who's going to be the bigger threat to the Dodgers, and kind of going on a sidetrack talking about the Dodgers now. The Dodgers, as the 1 seed, they're going to have a very tough run to the World Series.
Well, they're already in the postseason too. We haven't even mentioned they have already clinched a postseason bid.
Yeah, this early, it's crazy. I mean, they've got like a 20-something game lead on the Padres, and it's inevitable for them to clinch the 1 seed as well. They're close to double digits up on the Mets for that one. So, I mean, coming out of it, you're gonna have to play, assuming the playoffs go as we expect in terms of winning. We think the 4 seed, whoever the first wild card, is going to win their wild card matchup against the second wild card team. Whether that be the Braves or the Mets, we'll see. But let's first say for now it's the Mets hold on, and then the Braves win their wild card series. Then the Dodgers have to play the Braves, and if they beat that, then they'll have to play the Mets, who will probably have the easier match. I mean, Cardinals are red hot right now, so I mean they're dangerous. But the Cardinals, I mean, they're not going to get me, but they'll probably end up playing the Cardinals, or they would be the last wild card team, whether that's the Padres or Phillies, or maybe the Brewers sneak in. But as the 2 seed, even in the American League as well, it almost feels like the 2 seed is going to have a little bit of an easier path, because you'll have to play the best team. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say. Maybe not as much in the American League, but in the National League, you'll have to play the Braves or the Mets if you're the Dodgers in the first round, and then you'll have to play probably the other one in the championship series just to get to the World Series. So, I mean, both these teams are very big threats. We feel like the Braves are a little bit more of a threat, but that's not to say that the Mets can take down the Dodgers as well. So it's going to be a fun postseason in the National League.
Well, it's a lot like last year with the Giants and the Dodgers, where the Giants were the 1 seed, but you almost rather them be the 2 seed, because they had to face the Dodgers in the division series as opposed to playing them in the championship series. They were clearly the 2 best teams in the National League. I mean, you can argue that the Dodgers and Braves, or whoever is, there will be an argument for whoever comes in second in the National League East being the second best team behind the Dodgers in the National League. And if they win their wild card, they match up with the Dodgers right in the division series. And then if the winning team wins that division series, like whoever wins in the other division series, it's going to be like crazy in the National League. And when you look at the American League, it's just like so much weaker than the National League in total. But I think I'm just so excited for the playoffs. Both of these teams, I don't think there's any argument, are the second and third best team in the National League in whatever order you want to place them. The Cardinals, I think, are a solid fourth as of right now, and then behind them, there's a couple more teams, one of which we'll mention in a little bit. But I think that this has been the discussion all season. Mets or Braves, we're on different sides. It's going to be just fun to see it play itself out. In the American League, one team that you've stuck your claim on the entire season, staked your claim on the entire season, has been the White Sox. And they might be starting to prove you right. They've jumped up 2 spots in our power ranking, rallying for kind of a last breath comeback in the AL Central. They're 72-69, 7-3 in their last 10, 1 win behind the Guardians, 2.5 back from the division lead, and they've passed the Twins, who are now under 500. It almost just feels like the Twins are down and out. Because once you go under 500, I feel like you just feel like you're drowning. Tony La Russa hasn't been there, and the White Sox have been playing better, so it raises some interesting questions, but maybe I'll let you give your thoughts on the White Sox, especially because they are close to proving you right.
Yeah, I wish we had like a tech guy on staff who can go back to every one of our episodes and find where I said I'm still taking the White Sox to win the division and make like a sick edit of them celebrating winning the division at the end. I feel like
it's been every episode. Like legitimately, we've talked about
every time we talk about the White Sox, I'm like, I still take them to win. So I might have to go back and do that myself. Find all the time if I'm proven right. Find all the times where put some like Titanic music behind it, and but yeah, I'm still taking them to win the division. I got to stay on brand with this one. 7-3 in their last 10. They are playing well. Dylan Cease had that almost perfect game. I think we talked about that before in their last one, so it's a while ago now. But that's kind of what started their run. I think they won 3 straight at that point, and now they're playing well. Like you said, a 2.5 back of the division lead. I think this is going to come down to a big series. I don't know what the schedules look like. I'm hoping maybe a White Sox Guardians series matches up late, but yeah, I think the White Sox, they still have more star power, a little bit of postseason experience. We've talked about this before. Kind of once you get into late September, they're basically postseason games at that point, so maybe that will help. Maybe the Guardians collapse a little bit, just having the not as much experience as of late. So we'll see how it works, but still taking the White Sox.
Now, we both were very high on the White Sox coming into the year. I jumped off the ship early for them winning the division, but I was all like, my caveat was also like, I don't think it's the team's fault. I think it's the manager. I think it's Tony La Russa's fault. And I said, once they get rid of him, because I assumed that he would be fired at some point in the season, then I might hop back on the train. I'd be interested in seeing how they play with new leadership. Of course, I mean, prayers up to Tony La Russa. This is not the way that you wanted this to happen, but he's away from the team and they're playing very, very well. First of all, I'm curious, what do you think they should do when Tony La Russa is available to return? And I mean, like, I don't know. Also, it's like, what do you think about the team without him?
I think it's a lot of momentum what they're doing right now. I think they will still be able to play well if he returns, as long as they ride a hot streak going into his return. So if they're like a half game back or whatever, they overtake it, the division, I feel like as long as they're hot going into it, I don't think he'll tear them down. He's still a solid manager. Like he makes some very questionable decisions that hurt them big, but I think overall, I think they will still be able to do it with him if he does come back. I think they probably should fire him at the end of the year regardless. But I think as for this season goes, I think they can still do it, even if he comes back. And I kind of get this as one of those feelings where if the White Sox take over the division lead by a half game or whatever, I get the feeling that it's going to be one of those scenarios where they're not going to give it back. So I think if they ride the momentum and eventually take over the Guardians, I feel like that's going to kind of be a nail in the coffin for the Guardians, who kind of have held it for a while now since the Twins have just started to slip. And I'm looking at the White Sox now. They can easily do it. We've got 2 games with the Rockies this week, 1 game against the Guardians, which is weird, on Thursday, and then a series against the Tigers, Guardians, Tigers, Twins, Padres, Twins. So if the Twins are kind of out of it at that point, that might be given up, especially this late in the year. So you got 2 series against the Twins. You'll have a tough series against the Padres, who will also be pushing to solidify their playoff spot. But you got the Tigers twice, the Guardians 4 times. You play them 4 times, so chance to make up some games there. So that's a good schedule for the White Sox. And I feel like if I'm the White Sox right now, I'd feel like I'm in a good place.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's a couple more teams that made a big, small leap or fall down our power rankings. The Phillies have dropped 2 spots, but it's not exactly because they haven't been playing well. It's just they were passed by a couple surging AL teams, and they haven't been passed by any National League teams. So I think they dropped from 8 to 10 in our power rankings. The biggest riser, surprisingly, it's the Angels, who are up 4 spots, 61 and 79, 5-5 in their last 10. They moved above the Rangers to 3rd in the AL West. That is kind of raising the question, like, does this actually mean anything? And the biggest faller is the Marlins, who have fallen down 4 spots, who I'll talk about after you talk, but I'm curious, of those 3 teams, is there anything that you kind of want to bring up? Does any of this really mean anything to you?
The Angels, absolutely not. With the Phillies, I mean, I still feel good about them to win up to make the playoffs. I think it's 4 games up combined on the Brewers from being completely out, and a game and a half up on the Padres from being in the second wildcard spot. So I'm confident that they can still make the playoffs, but I don't feel like they're going to do anything in the playoffs. They're going to either match up with the Cardinals or the second place in the NL East, and I think they have no chance against the second place in the NL East. Maybe you can beat the Cardinals in a 3-game series if you dominate with Nola and Wheeler, but after that, I don't think they'll then beat it would be the Mets or the Braves, because they won't be the next wild card team. So maybe you can win the wild card series with the right matchup, but after that, I don't have confidence in them to make any noise, and you can go ahead and take it away with the Marlins.
Yeah, so the Marlins, I mean, they're 57 and 82, which is really bad. I mean, there's still a possibility. I think they lose 100 games, and they, for me, are one of the more disappointing teams of the season. I was thinking that they could be a potential sleeper team coming into the year because I liked their pitching staff. I remember I think one of my best takes preseason was saying that my dark horse pick for the Cy Young was just one of the Marlins because they had so many good pitchers. And I thought, they assigned some money to guys that I was like, that could work. And they made some good trades, but really they've been just terrible this year. They're down 4 spots in our power rankings. They're really disappointing for me and a lot of other people that I think had them as potential sleeper playoff teams or just good teams in general. Alcantara, Lopez have been really struggling lately. I mentioned that they made moves that I thought could have been good, but turns out they might have had one of the worst off seasons in baseball, signing Avisail Garcia and Jorge Soler. And they're just a crappy team. Like, there's no other way around it. They're just a really, really bad baseball team. And for me, that's disappointing because they've got young talent. They had pitchers that I believed in and still do. But like this whole season, not only has it disappointed me, I don't know, I'm just really not feeling very good about the future of this Marlins franchise either. And I don't know if you want to kind of step in and give your thoughts on the Marlins, but for me, like, this is one of the most telling teams this season is they haven't made any kind of jump. They might have even gotten worse. And for me, that's a big red flag when I'm thinking about their rebuild.
Yeah, I checked my postseason predictions or record predictions today about the Marlins. I think I had them somewhere around mid-70s and high 80s in losses. So I probably expect them to be a little bit better at this point in the season than they are right now. But, I mean, for me, I wasn't as high on them. I think the writing was on the wall a little bit this past offseason. I mean, they gave a lot of money to Avisail Garcia and Soler. Soler had earned it because he had a playoff push, but neither of these guys have been like crazy good before this. And the writing is on the wall was there because, I mean, Derek Jeter left. He said this team doesn't want to win right now, so he left his ownership group. So I mean, that was kind of foreshadowing it. People still thought they had like a solid roster because of that pitching, like you said, which is still good. Sandy struggled a little bit as of late, but still probably the front runner for the Cy Young Award. But I think for this team, and they're kind of where I expected them to be, a little bit worse, but not as much. I didn't expect them to be a playoff team, maybe in contention a little bit, kind of at the spot where the Giants are. Kind of expected them maybe to be around there, like maybe if you go on a crazy run, you're in the picture, but you really don't have that good of a chance. So this team, I wasn't expecting them to do all much, and kind of not as disappointed, but yeah, I could see how you are.
Yeah, and I just think it makes me question their future. for the future. This episode, let's get into some finishing segments. Of course, this is a way to end the episode and have a little bit of fun. So we're going to go through a top 5 and then also do a similar question segment like we did last week. We wanted to go completely outside of the current season, as we've talked a lot about that in this episode, and go for something fun. We're going to go top 5 baseball foods. Now, this isn't stadium specific. It's just overall. You could be at Little League, you could be a minor league game, you could be a major league game, just food that you can pretty much find in any baseball stadium. You can even eat it at home watching baseball if you really wanted to, but just foods you associate with baseball. We're going top 5. Ryan, I'll let you start it with your number 5.
At number 5, I'm going to go with pizza. But I was not expecting this. I thought we were talking at the stadium, but I feel like some stadium pizzas, if you get those like super big cheesy pieces with like the soft crust, that's number 5 for me. I feel like those are really good at games. Underrated.
I think, to clarify, I wasn't saying like just like any food that you could bring home to watch baseball. I was saying like if you really wanted to have that baseball feel, there's certain foods you could bring back. Like there's certain ones that I was kind of targeting with that answer. I think pizza's a good one. Didn't make my list. At number 5, I'm going churros, and I know this one is probably a little bit biased on my part, but San Jose Giants games in our area has the best churros I've ever eaten. I think if you don't get something that's further on my list, this is the second best in my opinion. Baseball dessert. Churros are just so good.
Yeah, that one also missed out on the list for me. Number 4, I went nachos. If you get those helmet nachos, lots of cheese there. Oh, those are so good. I feel like that's a great baseball snack. If you're going to like a midday game, you don't want a meal, nachos are the way to go. Nachos, number 4.
Now, I almost put nachos on my list. The problem for me is like some of the stadiums that are just like the circular chips with the cheese on it. I don't like those very much, so not enough consistency for me to make my top 5. At number 4, I'm going to go peanuts, which they're more of a snack and less of a full meal, but eating peanuts at a baseball game, it's a tradition. I think peanuts are really good. It's just a good way to kind of pass the time. Sometimes if you don't want to eat a full meal, don't want to pay for food at a stadium, you can bring peanuts in. It's also good for watching other games that aren't at big stadiums. So I think peanuts and baseball go well together. It's my number 4.
I feel like peanuts definitely should have made my list. I think they're one of my bigger snubs now that you got me thinking about it. Number 3, I went Dippin' Dots. I feel like I get Dippin' Dots. I feel like at every game I go to, but I never get Dippin' Dots any other occasion. Like I feel like I see Dippin' Dots, I'm like, oh, Dippin' Dots, and then I go and buy Dippin' Dots. So I mean, Dippin' Dots, they're my number 3. I mean, the cookies and cream Dippin' Dots, I get those all the time at games.
I'm gonna go on a rant about Dippin' Dots real quick. Dippin' Dots are the worst thing to spend your money on and the biggest scam of like any food ever. First of all, it's just ice cream but smaller and little dots that are harder to eat but cost more money. Like, I don't know why anyone would want Dippin' Dots when you could have actual ice cream. Like Dippin' Dots for me, terrible waste of your money. They're not even as good as regular ice cream. Doesn't make any sense to me, though I understand people do like them. That's probably like one of my hottest food takes in the world. I just think Dippin' Dots are so overrated, but that's enough of my rant. Number 3, I'm going sunflower seeds. I eat sunflower seeds not just at baseball games. Like I eat sunflower seeds year round, pretty much any flavor from any brand. I love sunflower seeds. I cannot be playing baseball or watching a baseball game without sunflower seeds. The best is those Spitz barbecue ones. Can eat like an entire bag of those. I had one year for final studying, since I knew it was going to be in my room so much, I ordered like a shipment of bags of barbecue Spitz and ran through them, got all A's on my finals. Baseball or sunflower seeds and baseball go well together, and they're also one of my favorite foods on this list for outside of baseball.
I also snubbed them.
Where was your mind when making this list?
So the reason is we were going to film tomorrow. I had not had my list prepared yet. We kind of like literally on my way. I was in class all day before this, so literally on my way walking back from class here, I threw together 5 things that I thought like would taste really good if I was at a game right now. So I was not in the mind space to research and not snub people. So I snubbed those 2. I was thinking about big foods, and I don't know.
You can get through the rest of your list. You can get through the rest of your list, and then we'll let you do an updated, revised list with my better picks.
Okay. Number 2. I'm going to go with the hot dog. I feel like if I'm going like a meal, like a 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock game, or like a night game, I'm going to get a hot dog there. And Dodger dogs, unmatched. I don't care what you have to say or anyone else has to say. Dodger dogs are the best thing. I still don't understand. Like, every time I've gotten a Dodger dog, it's so good. And you just had that one bad experience that ruined it forever. But hot dog, I feel like that's the best meal you can get at a game. So hot dog slots in at number 2.
Okay, number 2 for me. I teased it earlier. I'm going to go ice cream, but only if it's in the little team helmet. I worked at an ice cream shop for like almost an entire summer and more. I like ice cream. I consider myself like kind of a connoisseur of ice cream. Regular ice cream at stadiums isn't great, but for some reason it tastes 100 times better when it's in the little team helmet. For me, it's the best dessert you can get at a baseball game. It's number 2 on my list. Ice cream in a little team helmet, unmatched.
So I'm going to go a similar direction for my number 1 with the ice cream track. This is another thing like Dippin' Dots I never get outside of a stadium. But whenever I see him at a stadium, I'm like, I call the guy over, like, come here, give me some of that.
I know what you're going with.
You want to take a guess?
Is it Dibs?
It is Dibs. Dibs at number 1. Just the crunch of it. It's just so good. I would eat that. I feel like this has to exist, but like the chocolate is so good on there. They should make like chocolate bites if they don't already, and I'm going to look into that right after we finish and might order like a huge bag. But the chocolate, and then you bite into it, and then it's the nice cold ice cream on a hot day.
Here's the thing. I ate Dibs like so often at baseball games when I was younger that I kind of like got sick of them. And I think from now, like I have not had Dibs in like 5 to 7 years, and I probably have to revisit Dibs next time I go to a baseball game. But it didn't make my list just because I think I had them so often as a kid that I just tired myself out from them, and now they just taste a little weird to me. But I'm gonna get them the next time I'm at a baseball game. Like I'll mark it down right now, and I'll remember. For me, number 1, I went hot dog. I think it's the best, most consistent food. It's at every stadium. Every stadium pretty much does it well. For me, the one that I had at Yankee Stadium was so good. The Dodger dog, I assume that they're probably better than the one I had. But with all the things swirling around, like they changed vendors for this year, mine was cold. I hate the Dodgers. Dodger dog probably not going to be my favorite, but hot dogs are good everywhere. Perfect for a baseball game. Some places they're cheap enough that you can get 2 and you just have 2 hot dogs. You eat those with some sunflower seeds. You have ice cream later on in the game and you're just fully set. I went hot dog at number 1. Did you want to redo your list, or are you feeling good about your picks?
I'll do this. I'll take out Dippin' Dots, slide nachos up 1, put sunflower seeds at 4. No, I'm taking peanuts at 4. Honorable mention to sunflower seeds.
All right, I'll respect it.
They'd be 6.
I'll respect it. For, like looking back now, if I was choosing before I had the idea of churros at 5, I was thinking chicken tenders for 5 because if I don't get a hot dog, that's probably what I'm going to eat because some pizzas at games aren't the best. Like the ones at like smaller games where it's just like the little circular pizza, not my favorite, but the ones where they do the actual slices are good. So those were my list. But I think I'm happy with the way my list turned out. So to kind of finish it off, 1 hot dog, 2 ice cream in the little team helmet, 3 sunflower seeds, 4 peanuts, and then 5 churros.
That's a solid list, and you got me very hungry right now.
I know, right?
I need
if I hadn't just eaten lunch, right, I was going to be heading to...
I'm going to be heading to Arlington right now, Globe Life, just to go get some Dibs and some Dippin' Dots and a hot dog. Might just have to pull up to their game tonight.
I think that's a good idea. So let's get into the next question part of our segment. Oh my God, I'm so hungry now. But questions, do you want to start first or do you want me to start first? I've got a good one lined up.
I can start it off.
Alrighty.
So we did this one last week. It was King of the Hill. This time we're doing King of the Hill for third base, one of the best positions in the game. Someone on TikTok asked for this one. So first matchup, Alex Bregman, Manny Machado.
Ooh, that's tough. I like Alex Bregman. I don't like Manny Machado. That being said, Manny Machado's the better player.
Manny Machado, Austin Riley.
Ooh, that's tough because if I was thinking going forward or starting a franchise right now, I would go Austin Riley. That being said, right now, Manny Machado's the better player considering what he can do on defense. but Austin Riley mashes. He's one of my favorite players in the league. Honorable mention Austin Riley. Got to go with Manny Machado.
Okay. Manny Machado or Jose Ramirez.
I'm gonna stick with Manny Machado. I think he's been better in the past couple seasons. I think he's been better this season as well. Jose, still to me, the most underrated player in the league. I don't know where he lines up in my third base rankings because he's been struggling a little bit as of late. But the ability to switch hit, steal bases, I really like Jose Ramirez, but Manny Machado's the better player.
I definitely thought you were going to go Jose Ramirez there. Okay, so then Manny Machado still on the board. Rafael Devers.
I knew this was where I was going to maybe ruffle some feathers because he doesn't play defense as well as everyone else. I'm going Rafael Devers. Maybe like my favorite non-Giant in the league. I love Rafael Devers.
Okay. That's where I wanted you to go. And then finally, Rafael Devers or Nolan Arenado.
Knew that was coming. In the future, starting a franchise now, I'd go Rafael Devers. Right now, the better player, the best player at third base this season, Nolan Arenado. He's my winner.
Nolan Arenado is the king of the hill. Wow, that's a good one. I'm glad I was not in your position because I feel like third base. You made me do shortstop last week, so go check that out. It's a clip on our TikTok or go check out the last episode. But third base, I would not have wanted to do that. But Nolan Arenado is the king.
When I heard that you were going to be doing third baseman, I was really nervous, and I'm very glad that you didn't go, or it didn't end up being Jose Ramirez versus Rafael Devers, because at that point, I don't know how I would answer. I really don't.
Yeah,
I guess I would have gone Devers, but I don't know. There's
Machado over Ramirez and then Devers.
Just because Machado is so much better defensively than Ramirez is. I feel like, I don't know. I would have gone Devers, but just the idea of comparing him with Ramirez, we had to do all the All-Star break, everything like that. I just knew that one would trip me up.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, I like that one. For me, the one I prepared for you, would you rather have, if you were starting an MLB franchise right now, we don't have to go into the specifics of who it is, but objectively, would you rather have the best pitching staff in the league, or including bullpen, by the way, or the best lineup in the league, including the bench?
I feel like I would have to go with the lineup.
Really?
Just because, the lineup, they're in there every day. Pitching, it doesn't mean, best pitching staff doesn't mean you're going to have a number one going every single day. It just means all around you're going to be really good. So, you'll still have games. I just feel like it's more likely that when a pitcher has an off day, I feel like the offense picks up pitching more than pitching can pick up offense. Because when you have a bad day, when you get shut out, there's nothing you can do. And a pitcher can go 8 innings, 1 run, and get the loss on a day where your offense is bad. But a pitcher can go 3 innings, 8 runs allowed, and the offense could go off and still win that day. So I feel like offense, just because they're playing every day, I feel like I got to go offense. And historically, it's been a little bit easier to develop pitchers. I maybe not easier, but it's more often that you come and see a guy who has not been good in the past get developed by the right coaching staff. So I feel like I'm trusting in my imaginary coaching staff, and I'm going with the lineup.
I think I'm a pitching guy. I think I would go pitching, especially because I think there's a big difference between the number one pitching staff and the middle, average, or even worst pitching staff than there is between the best lineup and a middling lineup. Again, it's not like I'm saying you don't know what the other side is going to be depending on which side you go with, but I might disagree with your claim it's harder to develop pitching. I think there are less good pitchers in the league than there are good hitters. Also, with the idea of the everyday comment, the bullpen pitches every day, and if you've got the best pitching staff that includes the bullpen, I think your bullpen's going to get used more than your bench is. And so I think I'd go with pitching just because I feel like it's a little bit harder, especially also in free agency. There tend to be better free agent hitters than pitchers. I think I would go pitching staff, but again, I think it's a toss-up. You're set in a good way either way, but for me, I think I'd go best pitching staff.
It's a good question. I'm thinking you really could go either way. I'm trying to think of teams that have a great lineup and an average pitching or a great pitching, average hitting. I think
you look at the Giants. Just I know this. I'm just biased towards the Giants, but they objectively have one of the best pitching staffs in baseball, especially last year. They had the best pitching staff, I think, in the league, and then their offense was good. They had a lot of home runs, but it wasn't the best offense in the world. And I think if you went with like their pitching staff, including the bullpen, and an average to below average lineup, I feel like that team would do better than a team that like hit amongst the best in the league, but had a middling or below average pitching staff.
Yeah, and I was thinking of the Rays, who have a good lineup, and it's much improved recently. But even prior, they had one of the best bullpens and kind of just a good starting rotation that can hand it off to the bullpen. And they're in the playoffs year in, year out. So maybe you are right, but me being not a pitcher, I want to see fireworks rather than a team that can put up zeros.
Well, yeah, I think that's going to do it for our episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. Go down in the comments if you're on YouTube and leave us comments about your top 5 baseball foods, and get mad at Ryan for ever even thinking about including Dippin' Dots. And then let us know the answers to the last couple questions. Who do you have as your king of the hill? Would you rather have the best pitching staff or the best lineup? Let us know all that down in the comments. If you're on YouTube, also leave a like and subscribe. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave a like on the episode, download it, share it with your friends, leave a 5-star review. Also, go check out our socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, website down in the description. We've been the Double Play Podcast. Ryan, any last thoughts before we send them off?
Yeah, if you want to, we talked about our power rankings, so make sure you go check out our socials for that as well to see our full rankings and let us know what you think about them. But like Jack said, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll probably see you next week with a
We'll be back.
Exchange.
Make sure you come back next week to hear how I beat Ryan in fantasy baseball.
No.
Exactly. If I had to do a punishment next week and explain how I lost in fantasy baseball, that will be the worst week ever.
It's gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen. I think you're gonna hear I'm gonna crush my punishment, be the winner in fantasy baseball. We're also going to talk stock exchange. So players, teams, 3 up, 3 down. We're going to get into those. But thank you guys for listening. It's been a long episode, so thank you. If you've made it this far, leave a like down below. We'll see you next time.